Welcome back to Ferocious Education. This is Zed. Today we're talking about Vinco Ventures, going with the ticker BBIG. Now in today's video, we're going to go towards due diligence, technical analysis, and what I think about this one. I did make videos about this one before, my last one is in the description below, but let's jump right into this one. So Vinco Ventures, just as if this is the first time ever you hear about Vinco Ventures, they basically are a holdings company with one single strategy, the BIG strategy, which is to buy, innovate, and grow. And they have different brands underneath them. Some of the two most popular ones currently are Lemotive and NFT.com, and you might think as well about others such as basically Zash and other I'm going to mention about in a second. But first off, let's dive in through a couple of things I want to talk about in the presentation. I had some comments that I do want to clarify. So first off is the capitalization table, and this is really back since the 3rd of September. And then basically we're talking about the shares to be issued. There's around 8.8 million shares to be issued and around 80.6 million shares. Their total cash is going to be around $127 million. Now, note related to 5.5 million for Lemotive Management, 800 for PPE Brickle, and 2.5 million in relation for Immersive Transaction. Now, under here, there's also warrants exercised. And the question here is, for these two scenarios, are we going to see dilution? Well, first off, in the first scenario, the cash warrants are exercised and assumes all available warrants are exercised for cash. So that's around 89 million shares outstanding, around 9 million in new employee plan, around 30 million shares of no conversion, and around new outstanding shares or new shares outstanding would be around 128 million and around 118 million total of warrants. So basically the fully diluted would be around 247 million shares. So, or 247.28 million. So in all, you're probably going to have cash generated from warrants to be very close to $500 million, and cash as of the 3rd of September, is 127 million. Now that 127 million of cash is allocated for the Lomo acquisition in general, around 120 million of that. Now in result, you're going to have at the end of the day no debt. And there's another scenario here that instead of going for 118.82 million shares of warrants, it's only going to be around 23.76 million shares and around 60.245 cashless warrants. Now, this would result in around $214 million in cash generated from warrants in comparison to $492 million. So what does that all mean? Yes, there would be a dilution, but it's not how you actually understand it to be. This is going to be warrants. So it's not an offering in general. So these are kind of already pre-sold, but it will add towards the market cap in general. But currently, as we've heard before this news, the stock didn't really take a massive dump because I think it was initially back early on September and actually jumped a little bit higher. So the stock isn't really impacted by that news in general. And another thing that I do want to clarify here is the anticipated key date. Yes, today is September 15th. That's the record date for proxy. And we were talking about the record date for TYDE spinoff dividend. And I mentioned it in the last video that there's a ex-dividend date. And what does that mean? It means that you have to have shares by October 13th. So for October 13th, basically you're going to have to buy these stocks for the TYD spinoff dividends again 2 business days before. That's October 13th. And basically the vote itself, if you didn't get a chance to vote, that doesn't matter. It's not going to affect the dividends itself. It's around October 13th is that date you would have to buy in order to secure the record date for the TYD spin or TYDE spin-off dividend. Now, on other parts, we do have some new SEC filings reported on the 13th of September. But before going so, please make sure to click the subscribe button on the bottom right corner as it really helps my channel. A lot of you amazing folks have watched my videos and haven't clicked that subscribe button yet, so please do. Also, don't forget to drop a like if you've actually enjoyed this video. If you haven't, mention in the comments why. And you can join our Discord totally free. We're not trying to sell you on getting rich schemes. It's basically just a chat room if you would like some company during the day. Now, leading towards the SEC filings, We have one here. I think this one, we actually have two SEC filings. One of them is basically a declaration of shares. The other one is basically talking about Lomotive. And it basically is talking about that ZVV Media Partners LLC acquired 80% of the shares in Lomotive Private Limited, whereby the parties agreed that 8 million of the cash consideration payable under Lomotive SPA or SPA to Paul Yang Zin, Paul, a majority stakeholder of Lomotive, and it goes a bit more through technical details. But basically, upon the satisfaction of the closing obligation contemplated under the Lomotive SPA and upon conversion of the notes on September 13, 2021, the company shall issue 5.5 million shares of its common stock to Paul pursuant to the terms of Lomotive SPA to side letter. Basically, it's a payment going on towards this person named quote-unquote Paul. I don't know why they put it as quote-unquote Paul. I guess it's just to that's what they're going to refer to him later on in terms of the text itself. But in terms of the cash payment agreed, instead it's going to be 5.5 million shares. So was that really talking about dilution, not really affecting the general thing? It's for Lomotive shares in general. And it does tell you a bit more information about the executives, but that's not really important for us. What's important for us is institutional buyers. And the Bank of America apparently increased their shares by 3%. It's not clear how many shares they have currently, but it seems that they have picked up a little bit or a scoop off the stock. Now, on the other part that I do want to take a look at is here, Philip Anthony. Apparently, it was declared that they have around 130,000 shares. Able to see that this person, Philip Anthony, in this SEC filing, that they have around 130,000 shares. This was given to them, and they're actually the legal counsel. They're not a director or an officer or a 10% owner. They're just the legal counsel, and they're given 130,000 shares, almost there. To be specific, 129,756 shares. Now, on another part I do want to talk about is the short shares availability. Currently, it's 200,000 shares. Now, that is a jump from what we've previously seen. Also, BBIG's short borrow fee rate is currently sitting at 62.23. Now, that is a massive drop from last Friday, where we saw that the short borrow fee rate was around 148%. But for Monday, it was actually 100%, and currently it's 62.23%. Between that and actually seeing a larger amount of shares being returned and not borrowed any time, and accompanied with the short volume ratios are currently instead of 1/2 to 1/3 of all shares being traded, and volumes of short selling in general drop from 8th of September of around 93.5 million shares going to the 14th of September around 14.5 million shares. You're able to see that short sellers are kind of hesitant to touch this one. With the massive volatility, a lot of them are looking away from this, are kind of pulling in a bit further. But given that 30% to 37%, my indication perhaps says that most likely these are bigger players, people who can afford to lose a little. So this mainly could be institutions rather than retail. The volumes nonetheless decrease quite a little, as you get to see in general and on the short selling side. And just a quick thing, currently the ENFT platform and marketplace, the lowest point for the Tory Lanez album that we did talk about, that is owned by BBIG as well, as the first Tory Lanez or the first NFT album to go platinum. And this one here, the lowest is going 164, although it does go quite high also in significance. But in general, it does still look like a success, and hopefully we're going to hear more about that. Now, on Twitter, the retail is buzzing. There's a lot of technical analysis, different indications. This is Elliott waves, and they're talking about an ascending wave, basically, for this one. And I will talk about a technical analysis, mainly towards momentum and volume, but there's a lot of information here trying to indicate that this one will explode. Now, from a technical analysis perspective, what we get to see here is that, first off, on the moving averages part, what we're seeing is that the 10 SMA is above the 30 EMA, and that on its own is very bullish. And between them, there's something called a trading action zone, and that's where most reversals occur. That's between the green line and the red line, between 922 and 640. Also, 50 SMA is above the 200 SMA, and that's looking very bullish. Now, on the 80X part, what we're seeing here is that the stock itself is retracting from a very, very strong trend to just a significantly considerable trend in general. So it kind of retracted its strength a little. When we see that with momentum, it kind of dropped a little. Billion percent R is actually very close to being oversold, showing that there's a lot of panic selling and could be a bit short selling, but it's mainly panic selling from long investors. MACD here is critical because it appears to be almost touching zero, indicating that it's trying to go towards a negative reversal in the next couple of days. And that's very dangerous at this level, because if it starts, it can really tumble underneath, as you get to see panic selling would be a massive problem for this one. In terms of stochastic fast and stochastic slow, both have dropped quite significantly, a little bit stabilizing, telling you you might actually see a bit of a jump back up, but things are looking very critical at this point. Also, on the moving average bands and the Bollinger Bands, yes, both are indicating upwards, but our problem is with volumes. Volumes have dropped significantly, and you need to be very careful onto this, because as volumes dry out, really there's a lot less interest onto this one, and it kind of worries people who are in it from the higher levels, and they can lead to panic selling. Now, on the Fibonacci retracements, and the reason why I'm actually going after this one here is because high frequency traders and institutional buyers use it. So the resistance are at 853, followed by 1027 and 1249. The support levels are at 731, 608, 457, and 212. Now, going over just the main resistance and support levels, we're able to see that at this current level, there is a resistance at the 841, and it's a strong one, that is. And then after that, it's the 870. And then after that, it's the 890, going to the 930, and then 954, 984, going upwards to around 1058, and then up to 1095, going upwards to closer at 1168, 1192, and 1249. In terms of supports, what we're seeing is that there is a support currently at the 814, and then the 794, and then downwards to around the 776, downwards to 749, and then 685 going to 603, downwards to 598, 549, 472, 405, closer to the 341 level. Now, if you're to try to go ahead and try to find any kind of trend lines that we might have, I mean, the current trend line is basically all the way from the past and then try to move it up. And I guess the bottom of this trend line would be somewhere very close to the $6, $5.58, if you were to consider this one here. But again, this is kind of a stretch in general. And if you were to try to go ahead with another trend line with this one was broken, and I did go over that before. And then currently, I guess the only trend line you might have would be somewhat very similar to this right on here. But again, this is kind of very weak. In general, you can still trade it as different waves and suggesting there's another wave, but at some point, this looks like an inverse cup, and that might be a very bearish sign. Now, it comes to the question, Ed, what do you think we should do? I think that you should have really tight stop limits. Be very careful if it does drop below the 670. Below the 756, that's another very critical level. And panic selling is the one that is attacking this one. It's not short selling. Now, do I think that the dilution itself is the one harming it? No, I think it's just momentum. People who originally were pushing this one might be going to something else and trying to benefit with another stock, as it's harder to go from 1249, let's say, to 50 than to 12 to 1249. It's already done a massive push. So my consideration here is, if you have any money left into this one, make sure you find losing it and play with the profits. So let's say you went from 212 and currently at 824, you're almost at 4 times more, right? Take your capital out and you can leave the rest to kind of move on. But other than that, you got to be very careful into what you're doing here, because things can go bad with panic selling, as we got to see from the 1249. And this one can go from 823 to $5 or to 20. And you see the risk here starts to play a major factor. What do you think about the sticker? Make sure to mention down in the comments below. Share, subscribe, and like, and have a wonderful day. Now, if you're still here on this video, make sure to drop down below and join our Discord. We have a lot of different things going on, including, for instance, members that gives picks for free. It's not pump and dumps, we just things we think about, swings, etc. We also have really exciting bots. You can actually use those ones. For instance, we're just testing out this bot, for instance, that gives you Fibonacci resistance points, activities, etc. And we have a bunch of free things, totally free. We run on tips here, and you can ask me questions, suggest stocks, etc. It's a really nice community that has been growing up very fast at a very good rate, and it's totally free. If you would like to join that one, feel free to do so in the description below, and have a wonderful day.